So Mercurial just came out with their new and big step forward called Ampbox, and this is their amp hub or amp suite, whatever you want to call it, and from now on this is their way forward. Quick interjection here, Mercurial did send me a copy of Ampbox, but they do not pay me, this is not sponsored, all thoughts are still mine. So just wanted to clear that up. And I think it makes a lot of sense. So now instead of having individual plugins for all of their amp simulations, everything will be packed into this. Right now we have Euphoria, U530 and Reaxis available. That's already a great start. So now they also don't need to make an extra plugin with all of these sections in here integrated into that again and again. Rather, they can just update Ampbox and include the new amp model in it. And then down here on the key, you got the activation page. And here all the amp models are listed and will be listed in the future. And you will be able to demo each one without any kind of time limitations. And the only limitation you will have is that every minute or so there will be a couple of seconds of silence. And I think that's pretty much the best way you can do demos. Because then you really have all the time in the world to just try it out, see how you like it, and then down the line you can decide whether you want to dish out the money for it and keep it for good. Now when it comes to the sound, there's nothing really I can say that I haven't said already. Mercurial is kind of one of the top dogs when it comes to amp simulation, in my opinion at least. And now that they consolidate everything together into one suite, it just makes it that much greater. So let's just play around a little bit, shall we? Let's just get into the chuggy chug, okay? That's kind of my thing. Euphoria is still kind of my absolute favorite amp simulator out there. It's so chunky and juicy. I love it. It's not so sterile and kind of boring, in my opinion, like most guitar tones are these days in metal. This is just so raw. Let's also check out the T75. I sometimes get quite decent tones with that. Okay, let's stick with this cap and EQ setup for now. And then let's make a really chunky tone. So for this we need more power amp saturation in Euphoria. And of course then we need to turn on the volume. Before anybody complains that I'm just chugging along on the lower strings. That was not clean, but I don't care right now, okay? I just love chugging. I don't need to shred all day long. Now, let's do a different kind of tone. Okay, for this I don't want to have too much power amp saturation. So this is more of a modern tone now. Yeah, maybe a little bit something like this. Yeah, for more modern tones. Then we got re-access. Re-access I kind of see like an in-between Euphoria and U530 in its kind of style. I like to think of tones in a spectrum from very precise and very clear and crisp and clean and modern down to very dirty, very smudgy, very grungy and disgusting, kind of more in the vein of stoner and sludge and whatnot. And U530 to me is pretty much on that modern side. Euphoria is more towards the dirty side, and this one falls more into in the in-between. With the lead 1 channel we can get a bit more on the dirty side. First treble up, bass down. Yeah, and now here we can also play around a little bit with our power amp section. This is pretty much the power amp section from Euphoria, so we can switch the excursion between, what was again, I think medium, loose and tight. So let's switch it to tight on this one. Oh, no wonder my tone was muddy. And then with the lead 2 channel, we can go a little bit more modern. I love a very chunky sounding lower mid-range. When that range is not there where it needs to be, then your guitar tones just sound thin. The lower mids shouldn't be loud, mind you, because then it just sounds honky and muddy. They should distort the right way. And this sounds so good. Okay, cool. So you see, sound-wise, it's Mercurial. You just cannot go wrong with this, in my opinion. If you don't like the cabinet section in here, you can also load in impulse responses. Let's see, Mesa Boogie, Vintage 30, 57 mic, yeah, nice and standard. Let's turn off the EQ. Okay, now let me show you something else that I did the other day. Hang on. That kind of totally over-the-top chainsaw disgusting tone is something that I never really got with amp simulation until now. Okay, so much for that. Now here's some more information for the time of recording this video. Maybe things will change down the line. There is the general plan to move also Spark and SS11X into Ampbox, but as of now there is no clear set information on this yet. With that being said, nothing will change for now for Spark and SS11X. For these other 3 amp models, they will only be available via Ampbox now, at least to new customers. For people who already have one or more of these amp models, those plugins will still work, but you can also move to Ampbox free of charge. You will be able to get that for free and activate the amp model in there. And lastly, you may have noticed here in the power amp section, you cannot change the power amp tubes like in re-access for example. In the actual Re-Access plugin, you were able to switch between 6L6s and EL34s, and I thought that made a lot of sense because they do have a little bit of a different character to them. And there is no information on that yet, if that will also come to Ampbox. I hope it will. At the very least, hey, you can change the excursion of the power amp and also changing the volume of the power amp, and depending on how much you push it, it really has a big effect on the overall sound. If you already have a Mercurial plugin, then sure, move to Ampbox. It definitely makes a lot of sense. Also further down the line, new amp models will be available only in Ampbox, not as their own thing. And if you are new to Mercurial, then please check this out, okay? Alright, thanks for watching. You know how YouTube works, so do your shtick, and I shall see you next time.